Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. It's Friday afternoon. You're probably in drive time if you're lucky on the West Coast, and if you're just regular here in Central Time or East Coast, you are ending your week. And I thought I would give you a philosophic approach to Francis's pontificate here at the end of the week. One, I was waiting to see if there would be any news out of Rome. There was some indication, if you're subtle enough, that there might be some interesting news. There didn't end up being any. Number two, we had CMask today. It was on Will Nolan's channel, and it was an especially good CMask on the CIA and its role, central role, no pun intended, in creating and pushing feminism in the 1940s and early 1950s. And three, because it's nice to change things up a little bit. And I like to do a Friday afternoon show at the end of the week, even if there weren't potentially forthcoming news on Pope Francis. Now, there are a couple LifeSite news articles up, and I just push LifeSite. That's the number one place I go to check news that might be breaking on Francis as we push into the latter half of summer 2023. We're in the back nine, the last 6 months of the year. So we're in late 2023, at the beginning of late 2023. And of course, in the 10th month of the year is the Synod on Synodality. What does this mean for you? A couple things. The two articles that are of interest on LifeSite are the top two. Number one, Francis's latest controversial appointments have finally revealed his true colors. Interesting article, well written by Vaticanista Sandro Magister. I'm going to read you select passages of that once I get going here on this Friday afternoon. I love the article. I don't agree fully that the revelation of Francis's true colors, which, by the way, are red, white, blue, lavender, orange, yellow, green, whatever the colors of the bow are. And they've been revealed for quite some time. All right. I'm not going to bang that drum that hard because one thing I'm consistent about, pretty much everything I say, whether it's right or wrong, I'm consistent about it, is Francis. And Francis revealed himself way early on, and it was quite a scrutable pontificate. The other one is something that Father Gerald Murray said on the Papal Posse on Raymond Arroyo's World Over, that I want to be careful when I read, because I'm being real careful with the colors of the Skittles and things like that. But it's one particular controversial appointment, the most recent one, the DDF prefect. You know him as Tucho Fernandez, about to become a cardinal. He reveals a softness on the particular issue related to Father James Martin. Let's say that. I'm getting even paranoid talking about candies such as Skittles. I'm wondering if they're going to decode my code here on Rules for Retrogrades. I would argue, as you know, no, this has been a consistent pontificate, scrutable from the very outset. It shouldn't be too hard to see. And here's some suggestion I would make. If we were to characterize, to typify Francis and his relative support among conservatives and faithfuls in the church over the years, let me say this. 2013, he comes into office the first part of the year. Even center-right, even right-wingers are acting excited about him. That always baffled me. He was clearly bad from the beginning. This lasts into 2014. I couldn't get an article published on him, even at, take your list of conservative rags. Late 2014, late 2015 are the two initial family synods, extraordinary and ordinary. there's growing dissent among a minority who know. And I don't understand why that minority is so small, because those family synods got a lot of press, even in the secular press. April 2016, Amoris Laetitia breaks, and there becomes a national, international, Catholic discourse on, does he mean what he says in chapter 8 of Amoris Laetitia? It was pretty stupid. That's April 2016, so he's been in office about 3 years. People are just getting over the honeymoon period that I never had. Over the next 6 months, they're arguing. There are dubia submitted, and of course, there's dubia submitted by two sides, the left and the right. The good guys are the ones that asked him, do you really mean what you say? You're giving communion to the civilly divorced and remarried? He didn't answer that, still hasn't. From the left, dubia were submitted by the Argentina bishops, and he answered it right away in October and kind of ended the debate. Yes, you have the only correct interpretation of Amoris Laetitia. I've talked about this so much, and it deserves so much more discussion. That sort of shut up all but, how can I say it? That convinced the next most reasonable strata of Catholic observers. Between October 2016 and, let's say, September of 2019, the next 3 years, you had this kind of echo chamber where there really emerged a Pope-splaining mainstream church, and then a kind of 1 Peter 5, this is what before Steve Skojec went crazy and painted the town red. Life site. Those were my two main sites, my two main go-tos in that time. They got it. Church militant seemed to get it, but was quiet about the Pope in particular. Everyone else still was kind of Pope-splaining. But, there were at least some other people that got it. They joined me. I didn't trust Francis from the time he came out onto the balcony. In 2018, so it was 2018, Summer of Shame, 5 years ago. You had this time of the year, late July, early August, the stuff breaking with Cardinal McCarrick, violations of children, Francis's complicit cover-up, involvement, whatever you want to call it. Here's the timeline that I think is really quirky. Forget everything between 2013 and 2018. Okay, people are either slow or fast to pick this stuff up, and it is what it is. But everyone to the barely right of center, in my orbit anyway, that I interacted with, everyone who is barely right of the center got red-pilled. August 2018, and this is when, out of this noise, emerged the, I guess, calming presence of TNT on Marshall's channel. And for the rest of 2018, 2019, I do track this with as long as TNT went. People were all pretty right of, even centrists in the church were like, oh, Francis, this is pretty bad. And I just was like, hey, done and dusted. People now get it with Francis. I didn't realize the way Overton windows are kinetic rather than static. I was like, we red-pilled people, Taylor, on the Pope. And they're not going to go back to sleep. Then, late 2019, COVID breaks out. The Amazon Synod breaks out. And literally, the Amazon Synod was ending right as COVID was about to break out. Something funny happened as Francis wrote the post-synodal apostolic exhortation. They didn't do the next two Sankt Gallen moves, Francis et al. They didn't do viri probati, make priests in the Western rites able to marry. They didn't make women deacons. Normies said, TNT and all the Pope criticism of 1 Peter 5 and LifeSite News, has been an overreaction all along. That overreaction continued to become more overreactive, they said then in October, November, December of 2019. Francis doesn't want to make very pro-body. Francis doesn't want to push women into the diaconate. Francis doesn't want to push any kind of Father James Martin type agenda. You guys imagined it. All of you, LifeSite, 1 Peter 5, Steve Skojic had gone crazy or was about to by then. I don't think he had yet. But, Taylor Marshall, Tim Gordon, Crisis Magazine. Crisis is in there, too. And then COVID happened without a big change at the Amazonian Synod at the end of 2019. Then you had the COVID hassle of 2020, 2021. Francis was still doing all kinds of wicked stuff, particularly relating to COVID. It's not like he was getting any better, but because he held the phone, because he said, trust the process, I'm going to wait, I'm going to pause, I'm not going to push the next two agenda items, according to Cardinal Walter Brandmuller, of the St. Gallen Mafia, yet it would be too much. He seemed to be point man for the Great Reset agenda. We're going to piss a lot of Catholics off with, shutting down churches and being part of the WEF circuit, which Vatican under Francis absolutely was. So let's pump the brakes. That sole, simple, rhetorical, strategical move really seems, I only realized this talking to my buddy Jordan the other day. It was actually a couple months ago. That really seemed to be a juke that threw everyone off. When you fake left and you go right. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, he when he could have pressed forward one single time in October, November, December of 2019, he didn't. He must be a center-rightist, which is ridiculous. And I said all along, no, he's using Peronist strategy. Did you guys also forget how the Amazonian Synod kicked off? Pachamama. The main thing he did was heteropraxy, not heterodoxy there. But he backed off the heterodox teachings for the Amazonian Synod. He'd already done the big one, which was Amoris Laetitia. It's still a huge broken carburetor in the church, or a main part, a camshaft. Something major is broken now until this is addressed. You can't just say, oh, what if Francis, if you're kind of a centrist on this issue, what if Francis dies tomorrow and never touches more doctrine? Well, okay, he already said the only correct interpretation of the Eucharist is that it can be received in a state of grave mortal sin. So he was content to rest on his leftist laurels. And he did Pachamama, and there's been a million other things. Go watch my 101 Outrages by Francis. Little did I know that in 2020, I was busy. I was a busy man. I turned my attention in the middle of the year in 2020 to cultural matters. BLM setting our cities on fire from sea to shining sea. I got fired over that whole debacle. I moved to Mississippi during that time. I had to catch my breath. But when I did so, I shortly thereafter released the feminism book, and I stayed on the cultural commentary track. And then I published Don't Go to College the year after that. So during COVID, I came out with The Case for Patriarchy and Don't Go to College. So I was on a fully cultural track. And of course I did some shows on Francis in that time and was updating you. 3 shows a week, 1 or 2 of them were usually, one was on Francis probably. But what I wasn't noticing in those years, in the post-TNT era, was that there had been a shift, a blue-pilled kind of shift back to papolatry, hyperpapalism, pope-splaining. It was weird. Ultramontanism, whatever you want to call it. It's like people had gone back to sleep. And it feels like in 2020, 2021, 2022, more people went back to sleep on Pope Francis than the amount of people that were red-pilled during the Summer of Shame 2018 in the first place. Felt like a net loss. And it's, I come to you today, July 21st, 2023. Until the Synod on Synodality really got going under its own momentum the last couple months, this summer, as they're ramping up for it, until Francis named Cardinal Tucho Fernandez the new CDF, starting really May, June of this year. People were still in that mode. Now they're getting red-pilled again. And can I just say, I want to read you these articles, but if you're the kind of person that got red-pilled, then got blue-pilled, then got red-pilled again, like, shame on you. Shame on you. That's the kind of person that changes religions like 5 times in 3 years. You might know who I'm talking about. It's spasticity, low equanimity, bouncing all around, fits of fury. That is what we're dealing with. Once you get red-pilled, it means you've seen a kind of bit of epistemology, ontology that will not allow you to go back to sleep. That's where I've been on Francis this whole time. In all honesty, that's where, I just, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But some of you unsaw it. And I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm just trying to give you, as you go into your weekend, as we head into the latter part of the year, AD 2023, as we go into the Synod on Synodality in October, as we're heading toward a national presidential election, as all this stuff is culminating, and as we're inching closer and closer toward Agenda 2030, which is really where they're going to make their big move. Beerbug was just a forenote of the big move for 2030, which is supposed to be done. All the stuff is supposed to be done by 2027. And Francis is part of this global elite. Even Jim Caviezel is calling him the Rothschild Pope now. That happened sometime. Jim Caviezel got red-pilled. He liked Pope Francis before. As we go toward all that stuff, realize that you shouldn't ever get blue-pilled again after you take the red pill. And a lot of you guys did. And it's really weird. And it was my buddy Jordan that last time we got together, he kind of pointed this out to me. I'm like, that's weird. Yeah, I didn't notice. I thought after that Summer of Shame, just everyone was on board. We have an international, global problem, and that problem's name is Pope Francis. That we Catholics do, and as the church goes, so goes the world. But then everyone went back to sleep. You all went back to sleep. And now, and people were getting mad until this summer. So it's another opportunity 5 years later, 5 years after the original Summer of Shame, we have a second Summer of Shame, a preparatory Summer of Shame, where Francis is getting ready for the breaking of the church's back. And I have friends, not centrists. I have my buddy Will Nolan, one of my closest collaborators, that might have a different point of view on this. I have buddies like Pine Sap on Twitter. I mean, I don't know him personally, but we have a lot of similar takes, right? Similar approach to the world, similar approach to being a Catholic in a conservative space that I think is more hyper-papalist than me, and that's fine. I'm willing to disagree with smart people like that, but hear me out. This is another Summer of Shame, and Francis, if he has his way, is going to break the church's back. And all the people I listen to most, Father Jerry Murray is one of them, are saying that. Now, I think my buddy Will Nolan, good friend, we agree about almost everything. Pine Sap would say this. Hey, if you have faith, you realize that what Francis has done isn't that bad. And I say, no. If you have faith, if you really have faith, cast this litmus test into the future. October is when we're going to find out. If the hyper-papalists are correct, of course, we're all Catholics. But if they're really correct, and the Pope really can't depope himself, or the Pope really can't bring the church into a kind of crisis, right? If that's what the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church really means, something that at that high standard of review, I think it's a lower standard of review. I think it means much less. But if it really means that, then let's let the litmus test be, let's wait and see what will happen. Okay? Father Murray is out there. This is the other LifeSite news article. He says Pope Francis's new doctrine chief must be resisted if he pushes you know? Can you guess what word I'm saying? And it's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 long noun that describes the lifestyle most associated with the ministry of Father James Martin. So Father Murray says, Pope Francis's new doctrine chief must be resisted if he pushes that. I don't know, Father Murray, what resisted means, okay? We don't have a 1776 analog in the church. But I do like that you're saying this is kind of a future thing. This is a future test. Don't just say, oh, have faith. No matter what Francis does, it's all good. No, if you have faith that that verse in Matthew, the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church, means that we can't be thrown into serious crisis, then that means you're willing to make a bold, striking claim about the near future, not just the past. Also, I'd like to hear your point of view on Amoris Laetitia. But let's talk about that second LifeSite article that's up right now. Pope Francis' latest controversial appointments have finally reviewed his true colors. This is interesting because Sandro Magister is a Vaticanista. This is his whole career. Amici. I'm going to go Father Robert Barron, Bishop Barron. Say friends. His appointments have already revealed his true colors. That's Sandro Magister's whole career is typifying this pontificate, typifying all the pontificates. It would appear that with the death of Pope Benedict XVI in late 2022, Magister writes, Pope Francis finally feels he is able to reveal who he is, who he truly is. Okay, I think he revealed it a lot longer, but I mean like full revelation, the full Monty. The death of his predecessor, Benedict XVI, at the end of 2022, was for Pope Francis like the passing of the Catechon, or however you say that. I'm going to have Joshua Charles on next week. We're going to talk about it. The restraint, the Catechon, is the restraint that held him back from fully revealing himself. I know there are like 5 ways of emphasizing the syllables in this word. Don't correct me. I know it's not right. Witness the acts of government that he has chalked up in recent months in rapid succession. He's revealing something. I think you can't get wetter than water. I feel like he revealed himself a long time ago. But he's revealing for those who are slow to see. The latest is the announcement of 21 new cardinals, 18 of whom are of conclave age. Neither the Archbishop of Paris nor that of Milan, typical appointments to the cardinalate, appears on the list, despite the latter's having been in office for 6 years. That's weird. Francis doesn't like Europeans or North Americanos. The nice word for this is whites. Francis ain't a fan. But above all is the major Archbishop of the Greek Catholic Church of Ukraine. I'm not even going to try to say his first name, Shevchuk. Also guilty of having spoken openly of everything he judges to be wrong in Francis's conduct regarding the ongoing war. So he's also a conspicuously missing appointment. 2 Jesuits appear on the list. Hong Kong Bishop Stephen Chow Saoyan, back from an official trip to Beijing that for the Pope outweighs the humiliation suffered at the hands of the regime with the recent installation of 2 bishops without the due prior consent of Rome. Isn't this what your guy's favorite Archbishop Lefebvre got excommunicated for? Unilateral consecrations. These guys didn't get that. And the Archbishop of Cordoba, Argentina, Angel Sixto Rossi, stalwart of Jorge Mario Bergoglio since the years in which the future Pope was provincial of Society of Jesus in bitter conflict with the majority of his confreres. Then there's the Archbishop of Juba in South Sudan, Stephen Ameyu Martin Mullah, compensated with the purple for the attack he suffered when he was installed in the diocese in 2019 on the part of opponents from a different tribe who had also accused him of immoral acts. And again, there are 2 appointments deliberately contrary to the conservative leanings of the respective national episcopates. Francis favors the minority here. In South Africa, the Archbishop of Cape Town, Stephen Brislin, white of complexion, and with, it's funny, Italians still talk about this stuff, white of complexion and with ideas similar to those of German synodal path. And in Poland, Grigor Ries, Archbishop of Lodz, the same diocese from which hails the Pope's Cardinal Almoner, Konrad Krajewski, his close friend. Ries is one of the rare progressive voices of the Polish episcopate, while Krakow remains without the purple, governed by a successor of Pope John Paul of opposite bent. So, contrary to what you guys who are J2P2s are used to saying about JP2, who had horrible episcopal and cardinal appointments, their appointments mean something. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. Well, then they shouldn't be pope. They do mean something. And we'll talk about Tucho Fernandez in a second, but these appointments, the deliberate suspension of having a cardinal archbishop of Milan, for the first Christian millennium, the cardinal archbishop of Milan is considered the number 2 in the church. The archbishop of Milan is always cardinal. Nope. He's sending a message. Cardinal Archbishop of Paris, always. Nope, that's missing. So then all the other ones I listed, I don't need to recap. He makes appointments to the cardinalate with lefties. He will not do it with right-wingers or traditional appointments. What's expected, he likes to thumb his nose in your face. I mean, that's just Frank. That's just who he is. He's a very contrarian man, at the very least. But now it's really Tucho Fernandez becoming doctrine chief that is the most telling. I'm not, that's an obvious story. That's a lead. The new doctrine chief, who's a extreme radical left-winger, is outrageous. It's outrageous. And who nearly beat him out for Francis's appointment? Maybe the only cardinal that's well known anyway, that's known for being more radical than Fernandez, which was Heiner Wilmer of the German Synodal Way. That's who Francis, 2 separate times in December and then January, 6 months back, said was going to be the number 2 in the church. He said it, and no one can stop him. Remember Cardinal Mueller, the outgoing CDF, took part in some intervention to say, please don't do this? Well, he's Pope. No one can stop him. They never were sufficiently specific about how they stopped it in the first place, the appointment of Vilmer. But Francis said 2 different times, I'm going for it. It must have been his friends that said, no, wait. Do someone a notch, a half a notch, a quarter of a notch less radical. It ends up being Fernandez. And so now you have Fernandez as doctrine chief. And Father Murray, I'm combining the 2 LifeSite articles, says that his new doctrine chief must be resisted if he pushes 7 syllables. The New York priest warned of a growing movement to change the catechism in favor of that lifestyle, and predicted that Pope Francis's synod on synodality will be a moment of crisis for the church. Okay. I'd read this to you. I would have it played for you, but I don't want to do that either because I just can't say certain words on on YouTube. Now I'm going to go back to the other article, and I'm going to read you Fernandez's doctrine chief. Having said that, the Father Jerry Murray is a guy whose opinion I respect. Let's go forward. The most striking appointment is not that of Victor Manuel Fernandez as cardinal, seen as a matter of course, but the previous assignment to him of the post of prefect of the dicastric for the doctrine of faith. Right? So Fernandez, contrary to what I was wrong in a Twitter dispute. Sorry, letting my hair down a little on Friday. I was wrong in a Twitter dispute. I was like, Fernandez Tucho has been, I'll just leave it like this. Tucho has been a cardinal for years. He's his main advisor. Tucho is the ghostwriter of Amoris Laetitia. I've known who he is since the second year of this pontificate. I learned a lot of these names the second year, and he was the main advisor. Through that first summer of Francis's pontificate, when Jeffrey Sachs, Ban Ki-moon of the UN, Emma Bonino, the leading abortionist in Italy, were all in and out of the Vatican throughout the entire summer. Tucho was the main advisor, the main one. So he's a cardinal now. Well, that's fun. But more striking is the fact that he's the number 2 in the church. Here, in fact, Francis has done what he would never have dared to do while Ratzinger was alive. And this is where Joshua Charles's theory and lots of other people's theory of the katechon is really important. That is the appointment in the key role that belonged to the great German theologian and later Pope of a figure who is his complete opposite. Suffice it, and I don't agree that they're complete opposites. Suffice it to say that his penultimate predecessor in the same office, Cardinal Mueller, years ago accused Fernandez of nothing more or less than heresy, outright heresy, for the incoherent theses he supported. But Pope Francis was not the least bit ruffled. But Pope Francis likes this. Don't make any mistake here. Pope Francis likes that the current CDF was accused of at least material heresy by the penultimate CDF. This makes a mess of things. It makes a big mess of things. But Pope Francis was not the least bit ruffled. He had indeed appointed to the office of prefect for the doctrine of the faith, first Mueller, then Luis Francisco Ladaria Ferrer, both of impeccable orthodoxy. I don't think Ferrer's impeccable, but orthodoxy. For him, this is only a tribute to Benedict XVI while he was alive. What they said and did mattered little to him, even at times blatantly contradicting their rulings, such as, for example, Ladaria's veto on the blessing of couples. The writer behind the key documents of his pontificate, Evangelii Gaudium, Amoris Laetitia, has always been Fernandez. It was always him. Okay? It was always him. Even down to the duplication of whole passages from his previous essays. And now it's up to him, Fernandez, to do something very different. This was in his mandate from the Pope. Do something very different with respect to his predecessors, according to the unusual letter with which the Pope accompanied his appointment. Well, that's not good. That's not good at all. To have done with the times when, rather than promoting theoretical knowledge, theological knowledge, possible doctrinal errors were pursued, to let the Holy Spirit bring out the harmony of the most diverse lines of thought more effectively than any control mechanism. In short, the triumph of that relativism, which was enemy number one for Ratzinger as theologian and Pope. Okay, then we come to the Synod on Synodality, which of course has governed the timing of all of these appointments and the timing of the appointment of our new Tucho Fernandez CDF, along with the other 21 cardinals recently named, 17 of whom can vote in the upcoming conclave. The Synod on Synodality is the controlling interest here. Those of the participants in the Synod on Synodality are very noteworthy. Noteworthy among the bishops elected by the Episcopal conferences are the 5 from the U.S., all conservative in character, a move that Francis has, however, redressed by adding among his picks cardinals much closer to him: Blaise Supich, Wilton Gregory, Robert McElroy, Joseph Tobin, and Sean O'Malley. The 5 most liberal choices that could be imagined here. Plus Archbishop Paul Etienne and Jesuit activist James Martin. This latter, the troubadour of that new morality, which is among the declared objectives of the true director of the Synod, together with the Pope, Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, Relator General of the Assembly. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I don't know, if you like Bishop Barron, he is one of the Episcopal appointments. He's not a strong right-winger. He's just not Hollerich. He's not Wilton Gregory. Among the witnesses without the right to vote Francis has also included Luca Casarini, the anti-globalization activist he has repeatedly praised as a hero of aid for migrants in the Mediterranean, most recently at the Angelus on Sunday, July 9th. But in addition to those selected, those whom Francis has excluded from participating in the Synod also make news, including the holders of all the Vatican offices that deal with the law. So, who are the 4 cardinals he's appointed himself? President of the new court, the American Kevin J. Farrell, and as members, the Italians Matteo Zuppi, Augusto Lo Giudice, and Mauro Gambetti, none of whom has the slightest legal expertise. Gambetti, for example, has recently distinguished himself instead with the sensational fiasco of a pretentious show with singers and 30 Nobel Prize winners brought from all over the world in the name of brotherhood in a desolately empty St. Peter's Square. Remember that? Among canon law scholars, the new fundamental law promulgated by the Pope was immediately made the target of severe criticism, but it is known that Francis does not have the slightest respect for the rule of law, given how he has so far tampered with, for example, the trial underway at the Vatican over the London property debacle, or how he has had Cardinal Giovanna Angela Becciu pilloried long before he was duly tried and without even saying why. Returning to the appointment of Fernandez, it should be added that he immediately stated that he was not fit to deal with the cases of sexual abuse that are among the main tasks of the dicastery entrusted to him, and that he had brought this to the attention of the Pope, who, however, supposedly dispensed him from dealing with such cases in the future, leaving this task to specialists of the same dicastery. Not only that, Fernandez has also admitted that he has acted unbecomingly, again, due to lack of preparation in dealing with a case of abuse as Bishop of the Archdiocese of La Plata. But hasn't Pope Francis repeatedly stated that sexual abuse is a capital issue for the Church? He has a zero tolerance policy? That's weird. So why entrust it to the responsibility of an incompetent? And then he goes on to talk about the Rupnik stuff. All I want to say is this. Let's reason together. Has Francis been revealed? Yes. Yes. I'd have a very hard time with you saying no. Has he recently revealed himself? I'd say as a distinction of degree, he's revealed himself more since Benedict died. Traditionis Custodes, he likes to twist the knife a little bit. He wanted to do that before Benedict was dead. It's not like he waited to do Traditionis Custodes and to take away the Latin Mass or to sincerely hamper it till Benedict was dead. No, he wanted to do that while he was alive. So he was revealing himself all throughout COVID in his dealings with China, which always involve Theo McCarrick. All throughout the Amazon Synod, even if he held the line on the big Sankt Gallen Mafia changes that were supposed to happen at the Amazon Synod that are really going to happen at the Synod on Synodality. So they were supposed to happen and they didn't. They're going to happen anyway. He knows it. But what did he do? He allowed Pachamama to be worshipped in a fake false goddess to be worshipped on Vatican grounds, in the Vatican gardens. So he's still showing himself. He's showing himself. This is what he's doing. He's trying to show who he is. Now, I'm going to get into next week with Joshua Charles whether or not Pope Benedict, well, all this conceptual foreground means that in the conceptual background, Benedict XVI was the katekon, the one holding back the rain clouds, who, when removed, was the catalyst to torrential downpour of heresy, blasphemy, crisis. I don't think you have to have one to have the other. Okay? I don't think for Francis to have revealed himself as really, really bad, really, really bad, that you need Benedict to have been this heroic figure. Because I don't have that view of Benedict any longer. I don't think you should either. But Joshua Charles is going to make me the case. And that's an issue intellectually I'm very interested to hear. So either Monday or Tuesday, Joshua Charles will be on making his case for the katekon, Benedict the 16th. Well, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I just think that it's a funny timeline that everyone got red-pilled in 18, early 19, got blue-pilled again between 20, 21, 22, and now they're getting re-red-pilled. This is something that shouldn't happen. You should not ever go back to sleep. That's fine if it happened. That's fine if you guys are like, well, okay, fool me once, okay, fool me twice, okay, but don't fool me thrice. Okay, fine. I just am saying, don't get fooled again. Do not get fooled again. This thing is real. He's going to try to break the church's back in October. Everyone's saying it. Vaticanistas are saying it. Arroyo's saying it. Robert Royal's insinuating it. Father Jerry Murray is, he's always pretty based. So he's on the cutting edge. LifeSite's saying it. Crisis is saying it. So now everyone who's right of center is way right of center. We're further to the right of center. You didn't see this waffling among these parties. Red pill, blue pill, red pill, blue pill. Always pay attention in the church to the most faithful, bold commentators. Now, they have to be faithful. You can't just say the boldest, or else we'd all be sedevacantists. I guess, technically speaking, they're bolder than we are. But the fact of the matter is, with one voice, people like myself, LifeSite, et al., are saying, get ready. Buckle up for October. I know I've done other shows like this, but this one's good because I want to trace Francis by popular opinion. Think about it. Think about what happened between this time of the year, 5 years ago. I was debuting on Taylor Marshall's channel. And that was a bad time for the church, but it was kind of an exciting thing. People were excited about YouTube commentary. People were excited about learning, okay, well, we already have the bad, might as well have the interesting backstory, the fascinating narrative arc of, wow, there's a St. Gallen mafia. What the heck is that all about? Let's hear about some of these shadowy characters. And me and Marshall would do show after show after show. How does this relate to the Marian apparitions? It was a fun time, if you can refer to crisis in the church that way. And then everyone forgot. And part of it's because, who knows? Maybe they wanted a kind of two-voiced commentary show like me and Marshall had, and we backed off. We each went our own way. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that it was central to it either. Maybe people just forget. Don't forget again. October's around the corner. We need to pray. I don't know what it means to resist Tuccio Fernandez. I don't know what it means to resist Francis. If anyone has that answer, leave it in the comments. What do you do to resist? God bless you all. We wait and see until October. Deus Vult.